My name is Bart Ouvry. I'm the director of the AfricaMuseum in Tervuren. I'm very pleased to be with you from a distance. I'm speaking to you from Tervuren. I'm a career diplomat. I've been for more than 30 years a Belgian and a European diplomat. I was an ambassador in Nairobi, Kenya, for Belgium, and then I became an ambassador for the European Union, first in Kinshasa, DRC Congo, and then in Bamako in Mali. I have now made the choice of becoming a museum director, and I'll explain why I'm doing that. My main reason for that is cultural and scientific diplomacy. I've been a diplomat for a long time. We do economic diplomacy, we do political diplomacy. But I believe that in the long term, what is most significant is bringing people together. And I believe for that, cultural and scientific diplomacy is extremely effective. And that's one of the reasons why I have chosen to become director of this museum. My first point is history. If we don't know and if we don't recognize our own history, we have a problem. It is clearly a choice of the AfricaMuseum to recognize our own history. We were created 160 years ago by King Leopold II. He was the second king of a young nation, Belgium, and for geopolitical reasons, but also for economic reasons, he believed that his country needed a colony. He created this colony actually very much against the will of the Belgian people and even of the Belgian government. And that meant that he realized that he needed communication, I would even say propaganda. And so more than 125 years ago, when there was an international exhibition, he decided to have a Congo chapter. He created what we consider today a human zoo here in Tervuren, and it was a great popular success. 7 African people who came here died, but there were crowds and they were interested. And so he understood the interest of creating a museum which would communicate about the efforts of King Leopold to create his colony. It must be clear that our history is a history on which we look back now, recognizing that what happened, crimes were committed, and fundamentally the colonial attitude is an unequal attitude. We saw that in much of the language which was created, the discourse which was created in the museum, we saw that there was a racist undertone, that there was inequality, which needed to be confirmed. While before 16th, 17th, 18th century, the way we looked at Africa from Europe was often neutral or even very positive. During the colonial era, there was a tendency to present Africa as primitive, as violent, as being in need of the civilization which Europe would bring. So this discourse is very much present in the museum, and our decision has been very clear, and that's my second point. In the renovated, the innovative museum which we have today here in Tervuren in Belgium, is to deconstruct the colonial discourse. And that means that we show some of the former images created here in the museum. For example, Leopard Man is a classic. Well, we decided to deconstruct this. We are still struggling about this because it's not simple. Because if you show the old language, people who don't have the necessary background, the sufficient context, might not understand what it's all about. That's why we need to explain, we need to create context, we need to mediate, we need mediators. For that, first of all, you need good guides, you need good staff who explain. It's very difficult to do it otherwise because it's a matter of perception. And secondly, what we need as well, and that what is very important for me, we need to construct. We need to construct a new image of Africa. Through the media, often we still get negatives about Africa, and I believe that is not necessary. Having lived there for 10 years of my life, I know there's lots of dynamism, In terms of culture and science, there's lots of fascinating developments, and we need to show them in the museum. So that's the double role of the museum: construction and deconstruction and construction. Thirdly, on the international agenda, there's the question of restitution. I'm often questioned, it must be terrible for the museum to engage in restitution. I can tell you not. We have a very important collection, only cultural objects. We have 130,000 objects. Hardly 1% of this we can show in our exhibition. So today we share with museums in Europe, in the United States. Why couldn't we share more largely and, for example, share these objects with our African counterparts? So for us, restitution is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to confirm the legitimacy and the credibility of our museum, not just as a museum, because we are also a scientific institution. We have scientists working on biology, on geology, on, of course, anthropology. And for us, it's important not just to be a museum about Africa, but to be a museum working with Africa. I believe in the world of today, the former colonial attitude, which was an unequal attitude, is no longer acceptable. Certainly we are struggling, but we are moving towards a more equal relationship. And certainly in terms of culture, in terms of science, this is possible today. Fourth question which I want to raise is the future of the museum. I believe the museum has a future, first of all, for its role in society, for its commitment to a better society, helping us to live better together, because Belgium is more and more diverse, and I believe that if you look at the whole planet, this is inevitable. We're all traveling, there's lots of migration, and so we need to respond to this diversity by showing to inter alia our people of African descent in Belgium what Africa is about, and also to work with them, to fully integrate them in our museum. And of course there are many opportunities. There is artificial intelligence. We can today create objects through holograms or by just printing them. All of that is becoming possible and opens many avenues. But I still believe that people want some authenticity. It's important for them to see the real thing, to see objects and to admire the beauty and also the inventivity and the whole culture which is behind that. In our exhibitions, we try very much not just to show the object, but to understand the meaning of those objects, to help also our visitors to understand the long history of Africa and the richness of its culture, music, languages, objects, and much more. Why must we do that? I believe more and more that in the 21st century we live in a multipolar world. The time when, through different means, the West at least was convinced that it was dominating the whole world is behind us. That coincided with the colonial era. The colonial era now is behind us, and we live in a multipolar world where all continents have emerged or are emerging fully. And I believe that in a spirit of true mutual respect, that we must work together. And that is the commitment which we have. We have it on a local level with, for example, our Afro-descendant colleagues, but we do it also at an international level. So for us, international cooperation, working with our counterparts throughout the world, including in Asia, is very important. This concludes my remarks, and I hope we'll have a very fruitful debate, and certainly you're welcome anytime to visit the museum, and it will be a pleasure to receive you and to work together. Thank you very much.